Alrighty. Are we going to go live?
Yeah, and live.
Tell us when. Hello, everybody. It is 10:35. We're only 5 minutes late today. Look, it's Warren Sokol. Can you hear me okay? Unfortunately, we only have one mic up. We just realized. And there's two of us.
Hello.
So this is going to be like one of those radio shows where, like a Saturday Night Live skit where it's like, hello there. What was that one with
The
Amy
wonderful.
Poehler and...
I really love the spiced apple cake.
That's right, yeah. It's, oh, Schvetty balls. Schvetty. Schvetty. Anyway.
Can you say that on the internet?
I don't know if you can. Scrape, censor. Okay, so what are we going to do? We're going to talk about streaming. And NUGEN have this rather lovely plugin here that we have got to try out. So I got the plugin, and last night Eric and Rob opened it up and checked it out. Sorry, this is quite funny, isn't it? That I have to lean in like this. And and I was like, that looks like it's got about 1 billion functions. And then Rob goes, you know, Warren Sokol was using that this morning when we were mastering. And I was like, he was? So I think at like 10 o'clock at night, last night, I texted Warren and went, hey, this is Warren S and Warren H. I was like, hey, do you want to come over and be in our video? So this is going to be fun.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Thank you for doing the last minute. Sure, I will rearrange my day to be available.
Not a problem.
It was rather wonderful. But this is an amazing opportunity to talk about streaming and how it affects, frankly, you, because you're the last line of defense. You are a mastering engineer.
Right.
Sounds very posh, doesn't it?
This is something I use on pretty much every session now.
I know. Talk about amazing.
Yeah, what was that, Kismet?
Kismet, yes. And so anyway, I was at NAMM, as I'm sure most of us were this year, and I bumped into these guys, and this was up on the screen at their booth, and I was like, ah, like the halo, you know, the angels sung from heaven. I just think it's a really frickin' awesome idea. Are we on the screen?
Hello.
Hello, are we on the screen? Because we're talking about the plugin. Can you see it? I got the thumbs up. Hey, everybody, it's on the actual screen. Excellent. So here it is. I'm actually going to relinquish the controls of this rather wonderful plugin to Warren because, frankly, he knows it inside out. So it'd be better to have somebody who knows it really, really well. I mean, I could do my usual review, the famous Warren, open up and try it out. But there's a lot of incredible things about this that I want to talk about. Or actually, I want you to talk about. What we've done is we have, how many different tracks here? Like 6, 8 tracks? Oh, more. Yeah, at least 8 or 10. And some of them are, you know, pretty, if you go down here, pretty limited, pretty heavily already. The one that's at the top is a little bit more open. There is one that's super open down here. So basically, there's no one size fits all. Some of them are piano vocals, some of them are full production, some of them have rock guitars, some of them have you name it. So it's going to be a lot of different things. So it's going to be interesting to see how the different, is codec the right word?
Yes. Different
codec that these streaming services do. I mean, firstly, I wonder how they did this. How did they come up with this idea? How are they emulating it, do you think?
Well, okay, so first off, basically what it is, it's a number of things.
Right.
You've got LUFS metering, regular peak metering. That's the first part. And if you want, there's a way to, like, throughout a session, I use this from the beginning to the end for different things. So the first thing I'm using it in is just a compact meter like this, and I'll even put it to the end of my window so that I can't. All I'm looking at is
I see
average loudness.
I see.
I have, being a mastering studio, I have meters everywhere. And I have the stuff I've been using for years and I'm used to. And there's things I use on those and there's things I use on this.
Great.
So anyway, the LUFS metering, for those who aren't totally familiar with it, is important. And it's also not the be-all, end-all. It's not a rule of numbers, a law of numbers. It's a gauge. And this is something that I'm glad I have the opportunity, the world in front of me to say this. LUFS metering is a average of the song from beginning to end. So just doing a 30-second play of the song in 10 different places does not give you any idea what your LUFS metering is. It's the average of the entire song. So because of that, it can only be a gauge. You got a song that's quiet for 2 minutes and has a big bombastic 30-second ending. Right. It's going to have a much lower LUFS reading than a song that's loud the whole time, even if that first song's loud part.
I'm glad you're saying this
because 10 times
this clears up so much discussion.
I see that on the internet all the time. What number should I aim for, and what should I do while I'm mixing?
Basically, you're saying, I mean, quite frankly, I'm going to paraphrase it, that it's kind of meaningless, because if you go to the last 10 seconds of a song and it's clipping, just because your LUFS says -20 doesn't mean diddly squat.
That isn't your LUFS.
So it goes back to the thing that I always say, what I learned from you and every mastering engineer I've talked to, when I ask you, how loud do you want it to be? You always say, and Bob Ludwig says, and Adam Ayen, and Gavin, and everybody says, just don't give me clipping.
Right.
That's it. That's the answer. Just don't clip it.
Yes. LUFS had, and this might be kind of a broad statement, because there's ways it can be used as a gauge.
Right.
But LUFS metering really has no place in mixing. It's really a mastering thing. It's getting us back to a standard. In times of vinyl, there was a standard of VU loudness. In times of CDs, there was a standard. Nowadays...
God bless you for clearing this up.
So, I wanted to get that out of the way.
No, this is great.
Is an entire thing.
Well, thank you, NUGEN Audio, for instigating this conversation. So, show us how to use this little device. And get stuck in here.
Let me find the loudest song we have here, just as a comparison real quick. So as I play this, we're just going to look at the metering really quick here.
You're going to have to put it down onto that song.
Oh, you're right. Solo that guy. Okay. So
you're going to have to unmute that, unsolo that. There you go.
All right, so just as a meter, it has the LUFS metering here. Once again, I don't think we're going to be playing the song all the way through in order to get that full reading.
Right.
But it does give us a gauge. And then it also, in this green-blue area, it's going to show us our dynamic range, meaning how much actual dynamic movement there is. So we've got regular peak metering. We've got a slow LUFS meter. LUFS meters are very, very slow moving. Once again, it's an average of the song, so it's not reading in 10-second increments even, which is a very slow meter. PLR is peak to loudness ratio, and it's showing you that in this song right now, or at least what the little part that we played, we've got 10 dB of dynamic range there, which is quite a bit.
Just quite a bit, considering I would consider that quite limited. It's even
now, looking at it, let me preface that once again. If we played the whole song and it had time to average it up over 30 seconds, that would get smaller and smaller and smaller.
Although you went to one of the loudest portions of the song. I mean,
I did that on purpose. You want to play through this quiet part and watch what it does there?
Yeah, let's hear that. Marvelous.
So yeah, as it went through there, things slowly changed numbers and got quieter, and then went back to getting louder again. PSR up here, LUFS is average of the whole thing. The PSR reading is a little bit faster. Responds more like a real-time meter. So if you're going, okay, what kind of loudness level do I have now at this moment?
Sure.
That's the one you'd have much better luck of getting an idea of what you're doing. And if I play that again and we go to this loud area. roughly the same because it's kind of a constant loudness.
Right.
We go into the quieter part. So if you notice, as it goes into that quieter part, the LUFS kind of remains and slowly starts getting quieter.
Sure, because it's averaging the whole time.
The PSR follows that down with it. Right. So you can use it to see the entire length of the song and a closer, more VU type of RMS style meter on there.
Fantastic.
There's some stuff you can do here to match levels to see where this really comes into play when we open up the codecs is when it gets to Spotify, when it gets to YouTube, they have a target loudness level.
Right.
And it's much quieter than most people mix at.
Right.
And they all have their own target level, and they all have their own codecs. So this little area up here where it says offset match, external ref, we can use that to see what's going to happen, not just what it's going to sound like through their codec, but how much they're going to turn it down or have to turn it up.
Right.
So once again, those are references. You know what I mean? A lot of people look at this. I see online people talking about it as, well, what number do I have to?
No, I see it all the time, and I get asked like 50 times a day.
Yeah, me too.
I see it under videos. I see it in forums. I see people fighting about it in forums. You know, like, what's the right one? And this is fantastic. I've never heard anybody say it quite so succinctly. But I always use mastering engineers as the reference point because, you know, you're having to deal with, you know, where I might mix, you know, maybe 4 or 5 different projects a week. Sometimes maybe I'm mixing 2 or 3 different songs a day. Maybe I'm getting different people's stuff. But ultimately, I am dealing with, you know, 1/100th the amount of variety that you guys are getting. Because you might get 10 different artists in one day of singles. You know,
I'm joking. I don't know. It's not a problem.
So you've got like levels like this to this to this to that to this.
You can get that on an album.
You get it on an album.
You know what I mean?
Especially these days with multiple producers and engineers.
Or somebody can play around mixing for a year.
Right.
And their mixing style at the beginning of that year is drastically different from the end of the year.
Right. Absolutely.
All right.
Well, fantastic. So that's an amazing part of the discussion. I'm going to open up and see if I can get some of the chat going here. I'm assuming we've got picture-in-picture and people can see the plugin and see us talking. That would obviously make the most amount of sense. I'm saying that rather loudly, hoping that that is what's happening. I can see Eric's head, but I think he's... we are seeing that?
Yeah.
Okay, good, yeah. Because sometimes we're pointing at the screen. I want to make sure that people see that.
Yeah.
Okay, and you can hear us talking okay?
Yeah.
Okay, good. The reason why I wanted to set the second mic, but it would have to go through the same chain. You can't just plug it in.
I know.
Yes. That's why I was stopping you from doing it.
Yeah.
Okay, so everybody watching, this is really fantastic. Please hit that like button. That would be absolutely amazing. Are we doing giveaways on this plugin? Okay, look. Oh, look, there's us talking like with a 30-second delay. Look, we're up there. Hello, everybody. We're up in the corner. It's the no, it's the past.
That's the past.
We're the future. That's the past.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
So this is an amazing conversation. I'm already learning so much. So LUFS is the average of the amount of time that you play the song. So you're not even going to learn anything unless you play the full song to get the average of the whole time. And to be honest, it's only really a tool for you because you have to worry as a mastering engineer, like how a streaming service or whatever is going to read your song.
It hasn't become law yet, but it's really an attempt to get back to having a standard back in music as opposed to everybody just having tools that can make everything as loud as the sun. Do you know what I mean? But that's not always going to sound good.
Now, as a mastering engineer, not as a mixer, what are you always aiming for on your LUFS? Ish.
Well, like you said before, I'm not really aiming for any LUFS.
Right.
Generally, where it will end up with pop and rock music is somewhere around 9 or 8.
Right.
Which is, by the way, pretty loud.
Pretty loud.
Because when it gets to Spotify and the streaming services, their loudness normalization, Spotify turns it down to -14.
Right.
LUFS level. They actually use a thing called replay gain, but we'll get into that in a little bit when we
Okay,
start
good.
listening to the codecs.
We are going to learn so much about streaming. This is freaking awesome.
It's important.
Really cool.
It's important, and at the same time, a lot of people are just like, it's all just gonna break it all down anyway, so who cares? And it's like, well, if you do it correctly, it's gonna break it
really
down
important
and keep the highest quality you can.
Yeah.
So, Where were we?
Okay. Well, basically, we've done our LUFS. Where would we go from here? What are the next tools on the NUGEN MasterCheck?
All right. So once again, this is just a simplified meter, and I'll have one of these running while I'm mastering. I'm not watching it to make sure I'm hitting a certain number, but I'm paying attention to what number I am hitting, so I know what's going to happen down the line.
Right.
And it also helps to average out your songs on an album. Not so much the LUFS part of it, but the PSR, that faster moving. It's more like an RMS meter, so you can use that to help average out the loud sections on an album as well. You really got to use your ears, though, because frequency-wise can trick a meter into showing different. You have too much bass, it'll show a meter looking louder than it actually is.
Right, of course.
So you have to use your ears.
Hence the mastering engineer.
Yep, there you go. Computer can do it, but it can't do it as elegantly.
Right, marvelous.
All right, so let's open up the codec page.
Okay.
As I open that up, can I reference one more LUFS thing really quick?
Please, yes.
In the options here,
Yep.
all these colored options, those are for setting up different colors on the meters. We're not going to get into that. There's two important things, actually three important things in the options page here. One of them is this right here, units. I have it set to LUFS. The other option is LKFS.
What is LKFS?
LKFS is the same thing, but LUFS uses a gate at the bottom. I think it's at around 80 dB. Minus 80 dB, it'll gate. So it's not taking anything into account that's below 80 dB.
Why is that?
Because generally that's so quiet that it doesn't... It changes the reading so much that it's hard to explain, really.
It doesn't audibly make a difference. Is that what you're trying to say?
Audibly, it won't make a difference.
Okay.
No, it's just how the meter is going. The reading the meter is going to give.
Okay.
If you've got tons of bass, or if it's like classical music that goes really quiet at times, LKFS might give you a higher reading.
Right.
Than LUFS would. LUFS is the American standard. LKFS is kind of the BBC and European standard.
Okay.
Okay. So for music in general, LUFS.
So what you're saying, being English, I should use the LKFS.
Didn't think about it that way. Yeah, technically you're right. We better set this to LKFS. Or, yes. We better set this to LKFS, or the bobbies might break in the door and beat us with clubs.
Yes.
Anyway, LUFS is usually better for music. It really is. The other thing is, it's just labeled TP here. True peak is what that's for.
Oh, wow.
How's it reading true peaks?
How's it reading true peak?
ITU. I'd have to look at the manual to see exactly what that, but it's intersample clipping is what that's dealing. Is it going to read over 0? If you're clipping over 0, is it able to tell you how far over 0 you're clipping?
Right.
AF clip is basically the algorithm that Apple uses.
Right.
That's pretty much standard, once again, for these days. Not a huge difference there, once again. But if this does have settings for mastered for iTunes, so you can check tracks for the MFIT process.
Okay.
Because of that, it's probably best to leave it on AF.
MFIT being mastered for iTunes.
Yes. Which I had a hand in setting up the standards and workflow processes for that.
Nice.
When they were designing MFIT, I was at Universal and I had to sit with all the execs.
By the way, I met with Maureen Dooley from the Grammys a couple of days ago, and she gave me access to the new standards for file delivery. And I have all of it printed out, and she said we can share it. So if you're not on our email list, get on our email list, because we will send that out and we'll put it up and produce like a pro on a blog. So it's the new standards of how audio should be submitted, because there's all this massive discussion about what's a stem and what's a track and what's this. You and I know what tracks are and stems are in a professional manner, not from the perspective of being snobby, because I don't give a crap about being snobby. In fact, I kind of hate the snobbery and the elitism, but from the perspective of film and TV people, because when they're asking for tracks or stems, you need to know what to give them,
right? Because
they're going to use your music in film and TV. So this is a really, really cool breakdown of how professionally what we call tracks, what we call stems, what deliverables are.
Right.
That means like you're turning in an album, even to an independent label. If they're coming through Sony or Warner or something like that, they're going to expect a certain.
Yeah, it needs to be. There's a standardization to it. And naming conventions.
Naming conventions. Yeah,
That's a pet peeve of mine. Is when I receive files that were named for the person who wrote it. Do you know what I mean? I've never seen them before.
I've probably done that.
When I don't know if it's the same standards, but when I was at Universal, I had to write that stuff.
Yep.
Naming conventions and all that stuff, and I don't know if it was for Sony and Warner and Universal. Anyway. Yeah, naming conventions are important as far as I'm concerned because it lets you know what you got.
Absolutely.
Regardless of having to listen to it. Okay, anyway, last little thing here in the options that's important is target level. I have it set to off right now so we can just read what's there. But if we want to sit there and do the matching to Spotify and stuff, we'll have to turn that on and aim for a specific target. We'll get back to that later. All right.
I'm responding to comments.
We are also giving away 3 copies.
We are giving away 3 copies of this. Well, let's get a little bit more stuck into it before we give away stuff, because I want this to be a video that people can come back to again and again and understand how to use this. Cool.
Okay, so I've opened it back up to the full codec mode. And just to kind of go over what we got here, we still have all the metering. We have our LUFS and our PSR metering. We've got the LUFS in real time on a meter. We've got the peak to loudness ratio. And we've got a standard peak meter on the right-hand side there. Down the middle is where it kind of gets neat because we can not only listen to the codecs, but we can compare the codec to the straight wave file. And we can actually listen to the difference between them and see the noise that it's adding and the music that it's removing in order to make it smaller. Idea of as a codec is it removes stuff generally from the sides. It says, you don't need that to hear stereo, and you don't need that to hear stereo, so throw it away. File gets 75% to 50% smaller.
That's why we always say, my music doesn't sound as deep or as wide anymore.
All right, you want to hear this? You want to hear why?
Yeah, I want to hear why. This is awesome.
Okay, let me pull up. I don't want to pick on anybody. Let's pull up Spotify.
I don't want to pick on anybody, so I'm going to pull up Spotify.
Actually, their codecs aren't bad. The MFIT codec is great. Spotify's not bad. Tidal, hands down, is the best.
Okay.
I'm not going to tell you who's the worst, but by the end of this video, it'll probably be obvious.
Pandora. What?
You guessed well.
When I listen to music, and I can tell you, Pandora sounds the worst. Sorry. Yeah. I remember being at my, and I'm not going to repeat that name properly, but I remember being at a hairdresser's maybe 7 years ago, getting my hair cut, and they were playing music, and it just sounded really, really bad. And I was like, what are you playing this from? Is this like a really bad MP3? And they're like, no, we're using a streaming service. I was like, which one? And they're like, Pandora. And it was that obvious in a hairdresser's.
You open up a box of weird swirly distortion.
Open up
and
a
you
box.
can't close it.
We should check it. All right.
Okay, so Spotify's codecs, by way of codecs goes, are actually really good. So with this guy, I can go up to the preset settings. And under MasterCheck, we've got all these different options here ready to go. I just pulled up Spotify's codecs, and it gives me all 3 versions, the mobile version, desktop, and high quality.
Yep. Et
cetera, et cetera. We can also build our own so that you can compare MFIT to Spotify, et cetera. So let's go to Spotify. So, okay, we've got, in order to listen to the codecs, where it says encode here, we have to switch it to monitor mode. When it's in metering mode, we're just metering the codecs. You're just listening to the wave file. Okay, so technically when we're listening to the codecs, like, let's talk about what's happening here. The wave file plays into the plugin.
Yep.
Converts it to codec.
Yep.
Converts it to wave on the output.
Great.
Okay, so it's doing the full conversion for you. And because of that, we can do a null test and hear the difference between the input and the output.
Great.
All
Let's
right.
do it. I want to hear it.
There we go. So first off, let's shut it off. Let's go to none. Up here, we're just listening to the wave file. listening to the snare drum and the guitars in stereo, they go, right? By the way, when I'm clicking on them here, we're listening to them. Just for those of you who want to go download a demo and use this, in order for them to be active, this box has to be checked as well.
Okay.
Kind of odd that, and when these turn red, that means they're clipping. We'll get into that. That's probably one of the last things we'll talk about.
Okay. Let's do some more listening. Yeah. Let's go to All right. No, I'm dying to hear this.
Yeah. Makes him sound like not as good of a singer, if you notice.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. The snare drum is a massive difference. Yeah. Now, I don't know what YouTube's doing to this, but even then, you know, we're starting off with a source. So if the degradation is going to happen, it's going to happen.
Okay, so let me show you the cool part here now. The button in the middle shows us the difference between them. Me and my buddies joke around about this being the soul. It shows you the soul that's disappeared when you convert it to a codec.
Okay.
All right. So let's start out with the premium one, the one that's going to sound best.
Which it definitely did sound the best. There's no
I think so too.
Yeah.
Let me get it to where the vocals
it's
are
actually,
playing.
The premium actually sounds pretty good.
Like I said, I mean, quite honestly, Spotify.
Yeah. The difference between the mobile and the premium is pretty much night and day.
Yeah, the mobile one isn't so great. No. What we're hearing there when we're listening to the difference is it's taking the input, full-on wave file, and the codec, putting them together and flipping one out of phase.
Nice.
Perfectly out of phase. So anything that's different is left behind. The distortions you hear are the distortions added from removing stuff. Mm-hmm. The snare drum you hear is the reason you don't hear it in the codec.
Right.
And the worse the codec, the more music gets taken out.
Let's hear a bit more of that.
Yeah. So now, I want to do something for you.
Jesus, Mary, Joseph.
Now that you've...
That's why the mobile sounds so different.
Yeah, it's adding a whole bunch of distortion.
Right.
One of the things that I use this for, too, when I'm trying to see what a codec's going to do and which one I should recommend my clients to use and stuff if they're doing independent stuff, once you hear that distortion and we switch back to listening to the full song, it's hard to not...
To unhear it.
To unhear it,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And then it really disappears when we go back to the main one. So check this out. It's kind of...
Wow, that's huge. It's exactly right. You hear that. And then you hear it, you identify it in the actual source, and then you go back to the none, and you're like, wow, what an amazing tool. NUGEN, we love you.
It is. It really is a great...
This is fantastic.
All right, so let's listen to... You want to listen to some other codecs?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
All right.
And that's one of the best.
That is. Spotify's a really good one. I got to give Tidal props, because...
All right. This is Tidal, ladies and gentlemen.
They are quite literally about as good as it gets. So we'll start with none, and we're just going to go down the line to hi-fi here. Want to use a different song, or do we want to keep using this one? Because we got a reference.
Yeah, we should use this song because everybody's going to get used to hearing this song. Yeah. It all started when my cousin got to born summer. Long legs and hair like strawberry fields forever. Whoa, high red lipstick.
All right, cool. So, I mean, do any of those have any offense to you?
No, the normal, actually, could I guess that the normal's pretty close to the Spotify high one?
Right. I believe so.
Yeah. So it sounds like the very first one, yes, there was the subtlest of subtle differences, but it felt like, oh, is that the Spotify? The premium Spotify?
I really heard the normal one more when I switched over to high.
Right.
And I could hear just there was some
change,
that I don't know, there was I couldn't grasp on to what was
Can
better.
we listen to what it's doing?
Absolutely.
This is the bit.
All right. So first off, the hi-fi is a FLAC file, which means there's no compression being done. It does, I think it breaks it down about 75%, but it nulls out 100% with the WAV file. Everything's there.
Really?
Yes. What's up?
That's interesting. The normal the normal isn't doing half as much as the Spotify did, but it's not adding distortion. It's adding a different. It's like the difference I can hear is like very 3 to 5K. I can hear a lot of like very detail.
Right.
Where when we did the Spotify one, it sounded like it just sounded like
swirly
garbledness.
Right.
That just sounds like they've removed some sort of 3 to 5K detail.
Yeah, it seems to be more broadband too, as opposed to everything being pushed up into the high range.
Yeah, definitely more detailed.
Yeah, but the hi-fi one, like if you're
it nulls out.
If you're listening at home, it's studio quality. If you're listening at 9624, you're listening at 9624. A FLAC file is, for those of you who aren't familiar with a FLAC file, it is a type of codec, but it's more for transfer.
This is not an advertisement for Tidal, but it's doing a really good job.
Yeah, I mean, I have no dog in that fight, but Tidal sounds great. I can't argue with it.
Okay, great. That is really, really cool to know. Okay, I suppose I wonder what that one sounds like.
What's one?
That something about a box, putting it back in the box or something. Oh, yeah.
Pandora.
All right, let's have a listen to Pandora. Oh, they only have the free one?
Yeah. Well, I think that's all Pandora really offers.
Oh, because it's probably putting ads in and is it ad supported?
Yeah.
All right, we're going to listen to...
I'm sorry, but his this vocal got distorted. It would have been...
But it sounds like, even for the 1 nanosecond, I was listening to it for like 5 or 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Let's listen to it for a little bit longer. But what is interesting is it immediately sounded like they were trying to do something, as opposed to removing information to make it stream faster, which is, I'm assuming, what people are doing. They're removing information because they're trying to stream it faster to a mobile. I get it. If I'm listening onto my mobile, it's probably the equivalent of listening on my AM radio as a frickin' 7-year-old when my grandfather gave me an AM radio that he probably had since he was a kid, with a mono earbud. And yes, it wasn't like listening. Now, at least a mobile, as bad as it gets, let's be honest, it's not a frickin' AM radio. So that's cool. But that sounds like to me that they're trying to be clever, like they're trying to apply some EQ, because it actually found like the low end gone in 1 nanosecond. But worse still, it sounded like they were trying to boost some high mids or something. Are they trying to EQ it?
Where do you hear the soul? Because pretty much the whole song is there.
It's that you can hear the exact vocal in there. That's the first one we've heard where I could actually listen to that, and it actually sounds like an AM radio now.
You're
so basically, Pandora, you want AM radio.
You're about 50 miles out of town. The AM radio's about to cut out.
Wow.
Yeah, that's... I don't mean to bag on that.
It's free. Not knocking on it much.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's check out the mastered for iTunes, which because... All right, it does say Apple. If you buy this on the PC version, it won't say Apple AAC because Apple will not have the word Apple on a PC. But they do give you the exact algorithm. It's just under a different name, which I don't remember at this second in time.
Yeah, somebody said it sounds like a 5K boost. Yeah, it does. It sounds like 3 to 5K is being whacked up there, like they're trying to.
As far as comments, are people out there able to hear these differences?
I'm sure.
Because sometimes they can be really subtle. You know what I mean? And other
I think
times,
some of them are subtle, but this middle button here, what is it? I know you call it the soul. What do they actually?
It's
call
the
it?
difference button.
It's the difference button because they're
It's
flipping
doing a null test.
Yeah, that is amazing, and that's what everybody can hear like crazy. Is there a SoundCloud codec in this? They don't want yet.
There isn't.
Are they having issues trying to legally?
We could build it. Do you want to Google what SoundCloud uses real quick? Because we can build a codec here.
Guys, can you Google it, or do you want me to Google it here?
Either way. Yeah, I can. We can click on an empty one and build a codec.
So what?
It's actually kind of cool. I'll show you guys how to build your own too.
Wow, does SoundCloud use? Oops, I spelled it wrong there.
I know that SoundCloud doesn't use loudness normalization.
Out of the Opus, the blah blah is a high quality Opus.
Let's call this
high quality format in MP3 and a 64K Opus file generally sounds better than 128K
Opus file.
MP3.
Does it say variable or constant bitrate?
Changes to audio format users are not happy.
128. I'll bet you it's variable. Constant bitrate tends to sound better.
So this is SoundCloud's own thing from last year.
Yeah.
And they're saying Opus, successor to OGG, is a higher quality format. This is what they're claiming than MP3, and the 64K file generally sounds better than even blah blah blah.
Okay, that'll work. So we've got our SoundCloud here. I'm gonna assume it's variable bitrate as opposed to constant bitrate.
It's your. I mean, is it a 64 kilobytes per second though?
I saw 128 there, so I put it.
What it says, Opus file generally sounds better than a 128.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I got it at 64 now.
Okay. Well, we can always try 64 and 128 and see what the difference is. All right.
All right. So yeah, that's.
So this is off SoundCloud's own website. What they're saying it is. Okay, and we can try 64 and 128 and give them a benefit of the doubt, so we'll go with a slightly higher quality as well.
Yeah, to build them, you just click in an empty one.
Yeah.
Give it a name.
Yeah.
Here's all the different codecs you can choose from.
So Opus being the one they use.
Right.
Yeah.
Constant or variable bitrate, and then the encoding quality.
Okay.
And then you give it a name. Yeah, it's really simple. You just got to find out what they want. And hopefully.
So this is based off of SoundCloud's own website. Okay.
The constant bitrate sounds a little bit better.
Yeah, a little bit.
But it's also, I think, I don't remember how much, but it won't let you break the file down as small, not as fast.
So it's somewhere between, it's not as bad as Pandora, it's not as bad as them, and it sounds like it's somewhere in the middle. It's close to Pandora because I hear so much vocal in that.
Yeah.
That seems to be like, this is the dumb guy speaking, no sophistication here. That is the dumb guy speaking, as I've noticed that the worse it gets, the more vocal you hear in it. So forget about frequency response, like actual lyric that I can discern.
Yeah, you're not just hearing syllables.
On the Pandora, I could literally hear every word he was saying, and it sounded like an AM version of it, the stuff that was being removed. On the SoundCloud, it's like halfway between that and halfway between the washy noise of the worst codec for Spotify.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's a big up for Spotify. It's nowhere near as good as Tidal, but it's nowhere near as bad as people want to maintain.
Right. It's like, once again, you got to go into the settings and set it to that highest quality because the lower quality ones don't sound as good.
Right.
You know, that mobile one had.
This is completely eye-opening. I love this.
Ear opening.
Ear opening. Yes. Spoken like a true mastering. This is great. Let's do a giveaway of one of these. They've let us they've given us this to try out, and they have very generously, given 3 of these to give away.
Nice.
So Matt is sitting there ready to rock and do this. So my question would be, I presume everybody here uploads their music. I wonder what services you use. What service do you use to upload stuff? If you do upload it, that'd be interesting. If you've never uploaded your music, then that's okay. I just want to find out a little bit more about what you are all doing. There is no right or wrong answer, and if you've never uploaded your music anywhere, just say I haven't yet uploaded it, and you can still be entered to win one of 3 of these. Matt will choose somebody at random. We just want to know about each other and build our community. So have you uploaded anything? Have you uploaded it through, you know, CD Baby, through whatever you've used? Have you uploaded it directly to SoundCloud on your own? Or have you never done that? Let us know. All right, keep going.
Cool.
This is excellent. This is one of the most exciting ones. I'm looking at a plugin. I'm more excited about talking like a plugin sometimes than I am with a... This is awesome.
With your uploading thing you were just talking about,
please.
Can I give a couple tips there?
Please, tips.
Most independent artists will use CD Baby or DistroKid, or what are the other ones? TuneCore.
Yeah, I personally like DistroKid from a professional point of view because they do your accounting for you, which is huge. So if you're and I'm not being paid to do this. Should have talked to DistroKid. No, I'm just joking. The thing is that what's great about it if you're a producer is you can upload the song and you can go, well, Warren is owed 10% of the royalty, 10% royalty.
They take care of all that.
And they take care of it all, and you just register, and it's really good. It's a really great way to guarantee that you get paid. So I do it. They also are the cheapest versus the amount of services they add.
For independent artists, they're also the only ones that will accept 24-bit files for everything. However, fucking caveat, sorry.
Oh! But... I think he said, I don't know what you said.
Yeah, trucking.
Trucking.
Yes.
Yes.
The streaming services will only accept 16-bit audio, even though to go through the codec is a 32-bit process.
Yeah.
They'll only accept 16-bit audio from independent artists. So even though DistroKid will accept the 24-bit audio from you, once it gets to Spotify, they're going to treat it like 16-bit, and they're going to truncate it off and go through their process.
I have a question, which I think everybody in the back of their mind wants to ask. Mm-hmm. What is stopping... literally, I mean, I don't know actually the answer to this. Is bandwidth, storage space, what is it? What is stopping everybody from using the highest quality thing? Because
how long?
Like 10 years ago, I would have understood.
When I was working with Apple to set up the MFIT standards and like what that was going to be and everything, I asked that exact question, and I was told battery power.
Battery power.
Yeah.
Oh, on your device.
Playing the 24-bit through a 24-bit converter. I mean, the converter's a 32-bit in these things.
I mean, the cynical part of me. No, for instance, I woke up this morning. I got an email from Spectrum because we have our internet. We pay for business here, and we get 310. And I got an email this morning saying, for the same price, we're going to triple it for you. And I'm just like, that's great. God bless them. But at the same time, I'm thinking, really, it just feels like they're strangling people to keep it.
Yeah, well, you gotta have to update it every year, right?
Yeah,
you gotta have something to update.
Yeah, have to have something to update. You have to have something to charge more for.
Do you know that the first iPads came out had a 8 or 16 gig hard drive in them?
Yep.
That you could store to.
Yep.
It was inactive.
Yep.
And hackers could get in there and open it up and have storage in the original iPad. But it was an upgrade thing, and eventually, I don't remember what number it was, but they unlocked it, and suddenly your iPad could have a little bit of storage on it. It's not planned obsolescence, it's planned updating.
Planned updating.
Anyway.
All right. So I don't know, but it's my fault. I digress.
Real quick, as far as what we were talking about before, DistroKid will accept 24-bit audio, but it's better to send 16-bit because it's going to get treated like 16-bit at the...
So it's better you master it to the highest quality at 16-bit rather than doing 24 and let them do it.
Unfortunately, yes.
Okay.
All right. Any of these we didn't check out yet? Let's look at YouTube. There's 2 of them here for YouTube. There's YouTube and YouTube low bitrate.
Right.
So
I'm actually more interested in hearing the Apple one.
The Apple one? Okay.
Yeah, because we're on YouTube and
Yeah, that's another thing when you mentioned that I hadn't thought about when we started this, but we're auditioning codecs that then go through another codec.
Yeah, absolutely. But
but it is.
That's why that middle button is genius, because it's allowing us to hear the difference.
Absolutely.
I think otherwise,
that's true.
It's a little bit like when I watch a plugin review, and because everybody's so stupid about don't solo, they won't solo it, and it's like, help the guys out, help people watching this, and let them hear the difference in isolation. And then people get all purist about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, especially if you're trying to show a specific piece of gear, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So to me, it's like, I don't care if somebody criticizes me and says, "Oh, you didn't need to do that. We should be able to hear the difference." It's like, you know what? No, we're here to help people. We're not here to be elitist and snobby and tell everybody they're wrong. To me, it's like, I want to know, and I want to show these things, and I want us to help each other. All right, cool. I want to hear the Apple one, because Apple. Look,
this kind of started.
This is all thing. Apple everywhere. You know what I mean? What are they doing?
Oddly enough, this is for mastered for iTunes, which is not a streaming service.
Right.
Their streaming service, I forget what it uses off the top of my head. But yeah, this is for mastered for iTunes,
okay,
which is the download service.
Great.
But this is what they do to the tracks once they get them. And by the way, mastered for iTunes is only 24-bit. It has to be 24-bit. That's one of the caveats with it. And any of the, I'm sorry to go back just a step real quick, CD Baby, DistroKid, all those guys, if you want to do a mastered for iTunes, because it's a 24-bit file, you have to have basically two packages. One that goes everywhere else, another one at 24-bit that goes to mastered for iTunes.
Right.
So, anyway.
So you're basically recommending send a 24-bit and send a 16-bit.
Yeah.
So, okay.
When I make masters for people, I make the mastered for iTunes one, and I make a 16-bit streaming version, which isn't an official format, but it's kind of prepped like mastered for iTunes, but meant to go to the general, every codec out there kind of a thing.
Great.
Okay, let's hear it. So that one's pretty good. I definitely hear it clean up when we go to the non-codec. You know what I mean?
There's it's interesting that all the difference is really even.
Mm-hmm.
Where there's none of that horrible swirl that we had on the Pandora.
Or when the vocal boosts up, or the snare drum gets pushed down, or something.
It's a very even kind of. But you're right. There's a little bit of a distortion that seems to be added.
Yeah.
That you, as you were pointing out earlier, that you really notice once you can focus in on it.
Yeah.
So this is a really good tool for that. It's almost like inadvertently an ear training tool as well.
Right.
Helps you focus and listen to music with detail. I'm liking this a plugin. Yeah. I was really excited about it when I saw it at NAMM, and I'm really happy that we managed to get in contact with them, get to try this out, and give 3 away. God bless it. And we've only done 1, so there's 2 more coming. Okay, so what else does this do?
All right. So the last thing that's kind of interesting about it, well, not the last thing, but the next feature is offset to match. And what that's going to do is show us what's going to happen when you send it to Spotify. Actually, you know what? Before we get to that, let me show you a good way, easy way to prep files for codecs.
Okay.
Notice every time we've hit play, we start clipping.
Yep.
One of the things that causes the most distortion and the most artifacts is if you're clipping your codec.
Right.
Codecs add distortion to begin with, right? And what they're doing is trying to find quiet stuff that they determine the ear doesn't need to hear to remove it. So if you've got a loud song, like the one we're playing right now is it's pretty loud. It's got an average level of around 8 or 9. That's fairly loud. So it's kind of a constant volume. If it's sitting there traditionally mastered to where the peaks are just like minus 0.1 below 0, once you go through the codec process and add that distortion, you're going to be clipping. And it's going to happen during the conversion. So the distortion that the codec makes is going to be, it's going to get worse. It's going to be exaggerated was the word
Right.
that was on the tip of my tongue there a second
No,
ago.
that's fantastic.
So what these lights help us do is
Yep.
what we need to do is turn down what's going into the codec. Now, there's other things that can be done, but the easiest way to make sure your audio is going to sound the best without a fancy room full of mastering tools is to make sure that the codec's not going to clip, which means sometimes on a loud song...
Nice tip.
On a loud song, you may have to turn it down by 2 dB.
So it goes back to our first conversation. Don't worry about your LUFS. Worry about, are you clipping?
Right. Don't... My personal... in my mind, I don't understand mastering for the least common denominator.
Yeah.
I want to master it to make it sound as best as it can on high quality, and then I'll use every tip and
It's another question I get asked all the time.
Yeah.
Because then people saying, why should I bother if it's not going to sound good?
Right. Because it's going to sound worse if you...
Yeah.
You know, if you don't... Anyway. Yeah, there's no reason to master it to sound like crap. Let's master it to sound great, and then we can manipulate that with all of our tools and techniques to sound as good as it can at that consumer medium. It's no different than tapes or vinyl. It's just a different type, easily accessible version. You know what I mean? Where everybody has the tools to do it.
Marvelous.
Okay, so
I'm going to ask another quick question. We'll have this giveaway going because we have 2 more to do. So this is our second giveaway. This is just a really simple, dumb question, and it's a yes or no answer. But I would like, if it's yes, I'd like to know who. And the question is, do you use mastering engineers or do you do it yourself? And if you use a mastering engineer, obviously, who is that person? Who is that guy or girl that you use? Would be lovely to know. Let's share mastering engineers' names here. And also, the yes answer can also be, you might use an online mastering service. So if you're like, yes, I use Lander. Yes, I use eMastering. Yes, I use Shelley's company, Aftermaster. What do you use? And if it's a no and you master it yourself, you can say, no, I master myself. I want to learn a little bit more about what we all want to learn, what everybody does when it comes to mastering. And if you do it yourself, that's absolutely great. And this is to win another copy of the NUGEN Audio MasterCheck.
Did somebody win?
They won, the first one? I believe Tessa won. Congratulations, Tessa, the first one.
Congrats.
Wonderful. All right.
All right. I put it on the Spotify one because that's the one that a lot of people listen to. And their target level is -14. I'm going to change this back to LUFS. It defaults to LKFS. I think it's a European company. I set my target to -14 dB because that's the loudness level that they use.
Okay.
Okay. Now, one thing really quick. When it's a single, it's easy. You've got one song. It's got one LUFS. But what happens when there's an album?
Right.
And once again, you can't determine loudness levels by watching the LUFS meters. You have
so
to
you're
do
saying
that
you
by
upload
ear.
an album, the streaming service is going to take the average, all the songs put together?
No.
Okay, good.
But it's not going to do them individually either. One of the things that Replay Gain does is it does look at the album, finds the loudest song, and adjusts everything according to that.
So it adjusts the whole album based on one song, on the loudest song.
Right. That way it keeps your dynamics. And, and what's so crazy is nobody knows any of this.
Really?
You have to
Did you hear
seriously
that?
research it. That's what Spotify does. I think Tidal does that as well. That's part of what Replay Gain does. You know, that's why Spotify uses Replay Gain, because it will do that. But if I remember correctly, I do not believe Pandora does that, which I don't think you can upload albums to Pandora.
I don't know how.
I'm trying to think, but I know there's at least 2 of them that don't do that.
We don't call it Pandora, we call it Pandora.
I know that there's at least
the name that shall not be spoken.
There's 2 streaming services that don't do that, and they do the tracks individually.
Yeah.
So somebody just spent a day mastering it to get the levels to play back and keep this feeling going of this picture. And I realize everybody's into singles nowadays, but you know, when you're making an album, you want it to feel like an album. But it goes to Spotify, or not Spotify, but whatever the other ones are. I don't remember off the top of my head. I don't want to dog them anyway. But it does individual songs. So your quiet song, your ballad, is now going to be just as loud or louder, more than likely, just because of the way energy works, than your loudest song on the record. So things to keep in mind. Or pay me to keep in mind.
Yeah, or use a mastering engineer. Look, so I have mixed feelings because I feel like if you're Pink Floyd and you're uploading Dark Side of the Moon,
see, that's
don't you want the loudest song to be the loudest song, and you want, because you specifically mixed it and maintain that feeling. Right. So I actually think that that's better.
It's absolutely better.
Yeah. Okay.
And I believe that I know everything is single based right
Yep.
now. And this is a tangent, I'll keep it short. Everything is single based right
what,
now.
another Warren with tangents? There's more than one of us?
But I think part of the reason why the music industry has lost its fandom, and
Right.
you know what I mean? Like, I know that like you have that fandom like I do,
Course.
where it's just like when I was in high
Yeah,
school.
I haven't mentioned Queen yet, but I have now.
But part of that fandom was the mystique of that rock star. You know what I mean? There was something now with Instagram and all that. You know, yeah, I'm having a panini over at fucking Burger King or whatever. And
he said fricking.
Yes, I did. That's
okay.
Sorry. But yeah, it's they've just turned him into a normal person. One problem. The other problem is the destruction of the album.
Sure.
When you're listening to an album over time, this is my favorite song, and then this is my favorite song, and then this is, and you've got the liner notes, and you've got a piece of art there.
Sure.
And something that's long term. You know what I mean? It isn't just I'm listening to this week, I'm gonna listen to that one next week, and then that one next week, and I've completely forgotten about that first one in 2 weeks.
I don't disagree with that.
It's what makes a fan go back and buy album after album and a $60 concert T-shirt. And you know what I mean? You don't make fans with singles. You make a single purchase.
I don't necessarily disagree, but I do think growing up in an age where music was absolutely massive in so many people's minds, I also feel like I think the biggest problem, we're going on a massive tangent, but I think the biggest problem is rock stars and pop stars not having a voice that really means anything anymore. That actually, I think, because when I was a kid, an artist, whether you agreed or disagreed with their politics or whatever, is irrelevant in this. The point was they had something to say.
Right. But
nobody has anything to say. So youth culture isn't necessarily around about an artist. Because there's no artist going, you know, like, come citizens, congressmen, all heed my call.
Right. Nothing's you know what they're saying? They're saying, check out my blueberry panini.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's more about the art, because I feel like when I was a kid, I had 400 albums. Most of my friends had 10. I mean, I was just a fan of music in a bigger level.
Right.
Not I think sometimes we have this, because we love music, we have this sort of, and no criticism, but just a reality. When we talk, it sounds like we have this naive idea that there was every kid in the world wore a David Bowie T-shirt and listened to the greatest bands. I think it was always
I grew up in a small town in Nebraska. There was about 4 of us that gave a care whatsoever.
Exactly. I think it's still like that, but I think it's the onus is on the artists.
Yeah.
Whether you agree with them or not, doesn't matter. They have to say something. I think that's the thing. People are complaining about everything, but nobody seems to be saying anything. You know what I mean?
That's true, yeah.
Stop complaining. Say something. Anyway.
All right.
Sorry.
No, I think that's a good discussion. Needs to be had. Okay, so target loudness levels. We're going to pick on Spotify. Not pick on them, but we're going to use Spotify. So when I go into my setup here, I want it on LUFS because I know that that corresponds to replay gain, which is what Spotify actually uses to do albums or whatever. Their target loudness level is -14 dB. So up here in the offset to match area, I turn that on. When I turn it on, it says 2.1 LU, and that's giving me a reading from no music. But once we start playing audio, so with that off, our loudness, LUFS, once again, short term, we're not going to do the entire song. But we're getting roughly -10 to -9 in short term bursts like that. Once again, we're just using it as that as a gauge at the moment. When I hit offset to match, it's going to turn us down to our target level right here.
Yep.
Which is what Spotify's going to do. Now, where that matters is things are even still, and in fact,
and what you did there, just for people that didn't know, you turn it down so you show the level that it's going to what Spotify's going to do to it, but you also selected afterwards mobile, so we also heard what the codec is going to do. So it wasn't just a volume experiment; it was volume plus codec.
Exactly, right. So when I have the codec chosen, we're monitoring the codec, offset to match. We're literally hearing the way it's going to come across. Okay. So real quick, one thing I want to reference with that is the reason they use such low levels like that is because things are so widely different levels. They have to play classical music. They have to do soundtracks. They have to do acoustic. They have to do heavy music. So turning it down enough like that means classical music probably doesn't need to be adjusted.
Right.
Rock music is now going to come back. Everything's going to play roughly the same level, and everybody has a volume knob.
Right.
One of the things that it really shows is when somebody's crushed their master to death. Way too much, when it's overly loud, overly limited, and you play it next to something that wasn't.
Could we maybe deliberately do that? Maybe if we pull the plugin down here and just grab maybe an L2 or something? That's a bit unfair. It's unfair to take any one plugin.
Well, let's just use another song, actually. That has more dynamics.
Okay, cool. Yeah, just pull it down. You tell me where you want to put it.
Let me see it real quick.
Have a look there. Have a listen, more importantly, and decide what you think. Okay. I mean, the Morgan Mallory one is very organic.
By the way, because this one was louder than their target level, it came down.
Yep.
If it's quieter than the target level, it's going to come up.
So that is probably why this one is going to be a good example.
Yeah. Let's copy it down there so it keeps the settings.
I just dragged it down, so it should be exactly the same.
But we're no longer on the top one.
Oh, you want to compare it?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Sorry.
Yeah.
I see what you're doing.
That way everything's apples and apples.
So...
Okay, so this guy over here is a loud, limited song.
Yeah.
This one is... Are they both open for playback? Solo.
What are you trying to do?
Trying to get into both. There we go.
You want to listen to them at the same time?
Is there a toggle mode where it shuts the other one off?
I never use because I mix. I like to add solo, but yes, you could literally go. Where is this? I never use this function.
I know it is, but I don't remember.
Yeah, I actually never ever use this.
Is it a right click? Can you right click and choose it?
Can you right click?
Because if I remember, it's in the preferences, and we don't need to dig through it. I can just deal with it. Yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's just this.
That's fine.
I actually never do that. That's a solo selection that I never ever used. And I actually, if I have it in there, okay, solo mode.
Latch. That's what it is.
Turn the latch off. Is that what it is?
No. No, XOR was the one. It was on latch. That's why they were latching up.
Okay. Sorry, everybody.
You didn't need
Cancels previous solo.
I could have dealt with it.
There it is. Yay! All right. Function I never use.
All right. So that's this one, right?
Yeah, the other one's down there.
Okay.
It's funny, I never function.
Okay, so I'm going to shut that off for just a second. So we're just going to see what their loudness levels are. I just want to play through a section here. Okay, so we've got, once again, short term, not true reading, but we've got an LUFS of 10 here and 20 here. So we've got a 10 decibel difference. We're not clipping any of our codecs here, so we don't need to make any gain changes. This guy, we're going to make some gain changes real quick.
Okay.
So that we're not clipping it. We get the cleanest sound we can out of it.
That's fantastic. By the way, everybody, please hit that like button, and we're going to do one more giveaway. We're going to do one more giveaway, so stick around. And at the end of this giveaway, we're going to give you a year's membership to the Academy. So please hit the like button. I'd really appreciate it. If you can, share the video. It's always rather wonderful when we do that. And there's nearly 400 people watching. Thank you very much. It's rather lovely.
Once again, I'm not used to Pro Tools anymore. Where do I find just the gain plugin? There it is. Boom. All right. So I'm going to turn this guy down. I'm just going to do the whole file.
Okay, so you're turning down the loud, one. Well, you basically that's a master, you know.
Right.
So you're turning down the mastered track, which has been limited, as opposed to the one that has no limiting on it whatsoever.
Right. And because we've already had this master approved,
yeah,
I don't want to change the limiting and make it quieter that way, because that's going to change the sound of how my snare drums are hitting and how present the vocal is. So I'm going to take the gain and turn the gain of a finished master down. Let's clear those out and see if we're clipping now. Still clipping. So we're going to go down another dB.
And this is really important. We're not clipping, the song is not clipping the master bus.
Right.
It's not clipping the master bus. It's clipping the codec.
Right. Codecs add distortion. They also remove stuff. So
this is super important, because this is like...
It is, yeah.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter when you've got your mastering engineer, your mastering engineer will take care of this. You just don't clip your master, send it to your mastering engineer. He will take care of this. She will take care of this.
This is a part of the job.
There's actually so many famous mastering engineers that are girls these days.
A lot of mastering stuff tends to focus on the knob turning, the editing, and then making the correct formats and making them play back so that they're going to sound like all the other ones is a big part of the job that isn't so fun and fancy. This one has to go down quite a bit. Render. I don't use Pro Tools every day. I think I forgot to render it. That's why it wasn't doing anything.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
I'm stuck in mastering program
Get out
world.
of the highlighted. There you go. Hey.
Okay, one thing so I only had to turn it down by a dB to get rid of the clipping there. I would
still
normally
quite a lot though. I mean, that's 89.1% of its.
Well, check this out.
Of where it was at before.
Codecs are random.
Right.
So if it says I'm 0.2 dB over 0, turning it down by 0.3 means next time it might be 0.7 over 0. Totally random. So I got to give it headroom. I got to be give it room to do its thing, because this codec isn't gonna. I could do it 7 times and we're gonna get 7 different levels out of it. 7 different peak levels.
Wow.
So you have to give it. I usually give it at least 5.5 dB of headroom under what I need.
So basically, so what's interesting? So I want to know this. So knowing all of the different streaming services, when you're doing this specifically to be uploaded to streaming, what do you use one of the codecs? Is there one that you know what I mean? Is there one that works for all of them?
What I have is a setup. I have 2 different setups where I have Spotify and mastered for iTunes and Tidal, and they're all in one page.
Yep.
And when I'm doing this part of the work, I will put it into this program where I can do an offline process.
Yep.
And I'll hit mastered for iTunes, process it, and I'll see where my level sits at the end.
Right.
And I can see all the other ones too, because they're all right here.
Wow.
And once again, because it's a random thing, for the mastered for iTunes one, I make it the way it needs to be. For the other ones, they all use different codecs. They all use different target levels.
Right.
So I give that a lot more headroom. Plus, those are going to be 16-bit.
Is there one of say 3 that you have to make sure?
Spotify, mastered for iTunes.
Well, the master for iTunes we're doing 24-bit. So what I'm talking about is streaming only.
Yeah. So Spotify and YouTube for sure. I also check Tidal.
Right, but is there one? What I'm saying is, if there's 3 at different levels, which is the one that you have to make sure you can't clip? Because if you don't clip that one, it's definitely not going to clip the
loudest song.
No, my question is like, if I've loaded in like YouTube's codecs, Spotify's codecs, and Pandora's codec, you can only master the song once for streaming. And if all the codecs are at different levels, there's one that I've got to make sure I don't clip, because the other 2 are going to be set at different levels.
Because it's going to all these different places with all their different codecs, I'm watching all of them and making sure, which means it's going to bit turned down enough so that the worst one isn't going to clip.
What's the worst one that you're going to clip?
Usually Pandora.
Usually Pandora.
Usually Pandora.
Okay.
But once again, it's so random. It's it's such a random process.
But it's usually Pandora. So Pandora.
Yeah.
No, that's really interesting to know.
My focus is YouTube, Spotify, Tidal, the major players. And they usually have the least amount of clipping.
Okay, so I get it. So basically, now I know why you sort of slightly, and I mean this in a loving way, dodged the question a little bit, because you don't necessarily want to make it so it's absolutely perfect for Pandora, because that's not where most people are going to be listening to music.
Especially independent artists.
Right.
It's so up in
you
the
want
air.
the best. You want the best from Spotify and Tidal, because Spotify and Tidal are where people listen to music and love music.
Right.
And yes, it may not be quite the best for Pandora, but a true fan is going to be listening to music
and
from
Pandora
Spotify.
sounds pretty bad to begin with.
Yeah, it does.
You know what I mean?
We all know that. I can be really obtuse here, and whenever I read anything about them, they just don't seem to care. They don't care. They don't care about the artists. They're always screaming poor. It's like, dude, your business is a room with some computers in it. Stop paying yourself $5 million a year. You know what I mean? Give it back to some struggling artists. Oh my God, I can't believe I said all that. Might have to edit all of that out.
Okay, so at least on a short-term listen, I had to turn this limited one down by 1 dB in order to get it to not clip coming out of the converter. Codec converter.
Right.
So let's play. Just as a reference real quick. Here it is back at 0. I just want to play through it and show you... Here's the distortion it had before we lowered it.
Right.
When we lowered it, play that same area. So there's still distortion there, but it's not going the whole time. If we go to the mobile one, here's where it was. We lower it down. Just 1 dB. Still pretty bad. Not as much low end in it though.
Yeah, yeah. Definitely.
Anyway, so it does help to make sure that you're not going to be clipping going in and out of the converters. So now that we're not doing that, let's set our target levels to 14. The quieter song we didn't need to adjust down.
Sure.
But I believe it's going to have to come up.
Okay.
One more little caveat.
Yes.
And they don't all do it, but Spotify, you're better to be louder and have them turn it down because it's just a gain change.
Yep.
If you have to come up, they employ a limiter.
Yep.
So it's better to be louder than quieter when it comes to codec conversion stuff.
Sure.
They don't all do that. I know that Spotify particularly uses a limiter. So if you have to, this particular song, I think it said -20 roughly average level, which means it's going to have to be turned up by 6 dB.
Right.
It's probably going to go into a limiter range.
Uh-huh.
What's that? I'm just making sure I know which one's which. So it does look like even the quieter one is clipping a little bit here. So let's do the same to her.
I think if you get off the quick tool, you're going to be fine.
Is that what's Jack messing with me?
Yep.
Okay.
There you go. Because you keep using it's the grabber keeps getting it. So now you can just put the cursor where you want it to be.
Okay, so...
Wow, that's really bringing up the level.
Because it's so quiet.
But I've got to say something here. The perceived loudness now of the two tracks is that now feels louder because it's...
That's what I was saying. When you have a quiet song, it's so much easier to make an acoustic guitar and a vocalist louder than a full band because you don't, it's the energy.
Yeah.
You have so much frequency just in the full band, and an acoustic song, you've got air.
Got to hear that again.
Movement.
This...
They're on, so
they're both on.
It's going to be turning that one up a lot.
So this is an awesome, awesome thing that we're just learning here. This is fantastic. So the loud one turned down by... What are we using this as?
Spotify. Mobile.
Spotify Mobile now sounds quieter than the quiet one.
And we can see right here how much it's changing it. It's bringing the loud song down by 3.5 dB. It's turning the quiet one up by 8 dB.
Okay. And this has no limiting on it. On the Morgan Mallory song, there's no limiting on it. There's probably a tiny bit of bus compression. This was Phil Allen's song that he recorded over a couple of days and mixed. It's a course we did. These are all songs that I've recorded or are a part of Produce Like a Pro. So let's listen first of all to the track that has been that is limited and has been hit. It wasn't even hit that hard, but it's limited. It's not a block.
Do you want to turn these off and turn them on to show what it's doing to it?
Let's do that afterwards. So basically, this is what it's. This is the end result.
This is how they'll play out of Spotify Mobile.
Out of Spotify.
Fire and build it to endure. Steal your heart. Don't worry, I won't give you up. Tomorrow another day will come, I'm sure of this, I'm sure. Time got about me too. Whoa, with this side.
It's just like it. So we're sort of, it's counterproductive,
well,
you know,
to overprocess,
to overprocess, and overcompress.
In the past month, I've been asked by so many people to make it louder, make it louder, make it louder, and for the past 2 years, that's been going down.
Yep.
And when you see what's going on here, it's just not worth it to sit there and worry about how loud your mix is or your master is compared to somebody else's. Especially if it's going into a program that does loudness normalization, because yours is going to get turned down and it's going to show that you have this ceiling that's hitting.
Sure.
The person that doesn't have that, theirs is next to yours at the same volume, pumping and having music and making your body feel it.
So there's a question that was getting some attention. Do we adjust our mixes to sound better in Spotify Mobile, or do we just make the best mix we can, knowing the service may kill the vibe?
We talking about mixes or mastering? Because if you're talking about mixing, don't worry about it. Make it sound as good as it's going to do.
Yeah, mix the track as well as you can.
This is a finalized mastering
They mean master.
process.
Yeah. Okay. So they're masters for their upload. That's like...
I just wanted to clarify, you know what I mean? But yeah, the mix it, make it sound the way you want it to sound, and then use these tools to make it sound the same as much as possible. Make it sound the same coming out of the streaming service.
So
they're gauges. They're not laws.
So I wonder then, because a lot of mastering engineers aren't using this tool and aren't thinking this way.
That's true. There's a lot of mastering engineers like, screw streaming.
Yeah.
I'm just going to make it sound good. And unfortunately, that's not the world we live in.
It's not the world we live in.
That's half of my opinion. I start out, I make it sound as good as I can, and then I have to make the formats.
Yesterday, this is my typical day. Yesterday, obviously, we worked on how many songs? Christina's 3, 4? 4. We worked on 4 songs, through a nice pair of speakers, mixed it, made it sound good, did a couple of corrections. In between doing that, I did Skype calls and emails and this, that, and the other. And how was I listening to music? Spotify, streaming, whatever.
Yep.
If I want to quickly listen to something and reference it, or frankly, from a personal perspective, I'm trying to clear my head from rock and roll for a minute, I put on Beethoven. And so I've got Beethoven streaming on Spotify, like this, answering emails. And that's just my world. I'm sure everybody has our version of my story, whether you're working in music or not.
And thank God for NPR.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I love talk radio.
Yeah, 12 hours of music a day. You get in the car and it's like,
right.
Sweaty bot. No, so, I forgot with the, oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Anyway, so.
Today on Fresh Air, we'll be talking to Senator Ron Paul.
God bless it. We should. I don't know if we did a podcast cast, anybody be able to follow us, but anyway. So So there's a lot of conversation going there. Okay, so this can be used for referencing. Yes, Glenford. Glenford Holder is asking about this. This is exactly what this is for. This is to allow you to hear how your music is going to sound in all these services and how you can best optimize it. This is a freaking awesome plugin.
Read the manual.
Read the manual,
Really?
Watch this video 55 times so you can understand everything. The other Warren, there is actually two of us. It's hard to believe. My American cousin.
Oi.
He's like, "What? Really?" So, first of all, we're going to do the last giveaway. Would you please hit the like button? And if you can, share it, because this giveaway is going to be for the plugin. So thank you. Please hit the like button. There's 354 people watching. Could we have 354 likes? That would be super. If we could do that, hit the like button. And this is going to give away, but we are also going to give away a free year's membership to the Produce Like a Pro Academy, which is full of a lot of these great people following us here, who will help. And I'm telling you now, I know guys and girls in this academy who are going to learn this plugin back to front and then be talking about it. And we're also going to soon, in the next few days, publish the new standards for tracks and stems and how to describe it so that we can really help each other out. This is what this community is about. All right, so what is my question? What do you want to know from an audience? Not a complex question, but sort of a... We've asked them whether they use external master engineers, whether they do it themselves, whether they use like e-mastering services or whatever. I think maybe plugins. What do people use on their master bus?
I was actually going to say, how many people are starting out by putting plugins on the master bus?
Ah, yes, because that's the one Christina just. That's the one. Definitely, the big no-no for me that's caused some discussion is I do not top-down mix.
Especially compressors or limiters.
Yeah.
Because they're going to affect everything based on everything, and you're never going to hear what any of your individual
now,
stuff is really doing.
I do, when I mix hybrid, have the SSL giving me like 2 or 3 dB gain reduction. I also do have my Poltex on at all times, which will give me like 60 and 12. But it's like a dB here and a dB there, and I do mix through it, but I do not put limiting and multiband compressors and dynamic EQs and stereo enhancers and MS
all
Technique
at the
stuff.
same time.
I don't put it all at the same time. So if you are using all of that stuff on your mix bus, I suppose, yeah. What do you put on your mix bus?
What and actually why?
And why?
I'm actually curious why. What is the thought process behind that? I can see doing it when you're getting to the point or when you're finished and you've got this great mix, and then enhance it. You know what I mean? But I don't mean that in a negative way. I don't mean that.
I know why people teach it.
Uh-huh.
I know why people teach it on YouTube, because it's a little bit like it's what's the phrase? You know, they sort of give the people what they want. It's an easy way to make you feel like you can get a good result.
Right.
If I stick a multiband compressor across it, compression limiting, and boom and fizz like 60 hertz and 12K and all this kind of stuff, everything is quick and easy to sound good. And you can watch the guy or girl on YouTube and go, my God, this person's a genius. They're making my music sound better. But unfortunately, it's like it's a quick, easy solution.
And it's usually a short-term.
It's very short-term.
Short-term pleasant. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
everything sounds soft and nice because everything's being compressed evenly, and then you listen to your music 2 days later in comparison with a track you love, and you're like, why does my song sound flat, boring, no depth, no width? Okay, so what are you putting on your master bus, and if so, and why? And what do you like to mix through? And it's okay. This is not. I'm not trying to tell anybody off. I don't mean that in a
negative way.
Yeah, just like
I'm just curious.
What are you using on your master bus? The Townhouse BX, I like that. The UAD GS SSLG. Not moving the nothing on the master bus, says Sheila. Analyzer, nothing else. No plugins on master bus, only auxiliary. Tend to finish my mix, then go back to it after, and some master bus processing. That's really smart. Yes. Mix bus only after the mix is 90% there. Nice. I never mix through anything. Sonar works, obviously, for monitoring to hear. Nice. SSLG. Sometimes the Desert Music BS post mix. Who is this dude? This is Warren Sokol. He is a mastering engineer at United Mastering.
Yes.
At United Mastering. Post mix, people use Maxim. Maybe a little towards the end, I put an SSL E channel on the master bus, SSL compressor, and an L2, but not moving the needles at all. Actually, the L2 is quite useful to bring up level. When you bring the threshold down, it will actually boost the signal up before it starts doing anything.
Yeah.
It's a quick, dumb way of doing it, and I've done it for years when I'm trying to send stuff out.
If you grab on the L2 in particular, you have the threshold and the output slider, and in between is this secondary slider that moves them together.
Yeah, yeah.
A good way to get as much loudness as you can out of a mix when you're done without changing the mix is to pull that middle slider down. It doesn't change the volume, and bypassing. Pull it down, bypassing, and when you start hearing it smash the snare drum or cause distortion, back it off a little, put the output back to 0, and you've gotten as much loudness as you can without changing the mix.
Manly Varimu, SSL chain, nothing. Maybe an L2 -1 during mixing for initial safety reasons. I do the same thing. What I do is I take the output knob on the L2 and bring it down to 0.1, so I'm never actually hitting 0. That's just a superstitious thing that I've done for years. Nothing. SSL comp and L2. Waves, Lim MB, not sure what that is.
Linear phase multiband.
Oh, right. People are saying, I agree with everybody that left-hand side Warren, and I don't know which way we're coming across, you know. What about what left Warren or right Warren? Just some boom and fizz, says CJ, nicely said. Nothing, meters only, nothing. As naked as I am, says Keith. All right, Keith, a little bit more information than we needed to know.
Put some pants on, Keith.
Blah, blah, blah. VU meters, nothing on it. Mostly a limiter for clients, nothing till the end. Panipulator, I don't know what that is. EQ, neutron, NLS. Oh, the NLS is the waves kind of like analogy. It's actually quite nice. Okay. Sonar works for references. That's it. Waves are so never on the master bus until the very end. Wow. So, I mean, lots of people, this is really good.
Yeah.
Somebody wrote, I suck. That's why I'm here. Well, I'm glad. We're happy to help.
Give it a year.
No compression. Only use the G compressor. Well, that's nice. A lot of people that's very smart are using the SSL bus compressors, which I think is kind of no. I don't think it is an industry standard. So Doug Pickney one with no comment. With the comment, no plugin on the master bus while mixing. And you want a year's membership as well as the plugin. Okay. So what was the last thing we were going to talk about here, Warren? Oh, we're pretty much done.
That kind of covers it. There is one other little thing it does right here.
Please.
Actually, you know what? I do want to note what we were doing here before. Because of the amount of gain it had to add to the quiet song, it's clipping by 3 dB.
Oh, so
once again, if we would have made that master louder, it wouldn't have had to add gain. It wouldn't be clipping.
Okay, so there's an interesting point. So the solution is do not just send a quiet thing and think it's going to do it for you.
Right.
You need to do the work.
In fact,
for them.
it's worse to add because once again, Spotify will add a limiter. This doesn't. Oops, I'm sorry. This doesn't add a limiter within Spotify's algorithm. That 3 dB would have been limited. And if we're getting into vocals and bass, that would have just distorted the life out of it.
So we need to master these tracks.
Yeah, it's a.
We need this tool. I don't work for NUGEN, but
it is. It's a brilliant plugin. They did a great job with it.
It's a really brilliant plugin.
One other little option it has is this thing that says external ref. Personally, it doesn't really apply to my world.
Right.
But if you wanted to have, like, let's say somebody sends you a reference track, I want it as loud as this song. Basically, it'll do the same thing as this offset to match.
Right.
I can listen to the other track here. I can, basically it'll let you match the level.
So this is good. So go to Spotify, find something that you think sounds absolutely fantastic on Spotify.
Good idea.
And then use it as an external reference.
You could do that. It'll do that, yeah.
Aha!
It's an excellent learning. I mean, I use it every day for different aspects throughout my session.
This is like...
But it's an excellent learning tool.
Total kismet, as you said earlier. Last night, we were setting up to talk about this plugin and do the giveaway today. And Rob says, oh yeah, that was the plugin that Ron Sokol was using this morning. And I'm like, aha! Warren Sokol. 10 p.m. Here he is. Thank you.
Not
you
a problem.
rock.
Thank you.
Absolutely amazing. We love this plugin. I loved the idea of it when I saw it at NAMM this year. So we got in contact with them. They very kindly have given us these 3 to give away. So congratulations to everybody that won. Congratulations to our new Produce Like a Pro member as well for the Academy. Thank you ever so much for watching. Really recommend this. And if you've got a great mastering engineer who's using this every day, which we accidentally found out, but if they're using it every day to make sure they're optimizing your mixes, your masters to go up, I can't think of a better endorsement. So great work, NUGEN. Thank you, Mr. Sokol.
Thank you.
WS. WH out, WS. Have a marvelous time recording, mixing. You know, I love this. It's great work, and we'll speak to you all again very, very soon.